Hi, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Texas History for Kids. On September 11th, 2001, the world watched in disbelief as the unimaginable unfolded before our eyes. The images of the Twin Towers falling, the Pentagon engulfed in smoke, and a field in Pennsylvania became a final resting place for heroes. These images are etched in our minds forever.
If you're just joining us, you're looking at dramatic pictures of New York's World Trade Center in Lower Manhattan, where a short time ago we are told that a plane crashed into the upper floors of the westernmost tower.
I was somewhere between 74 and 72 in that stairwell when the second plane went through our building.
I walked up to him and leaned over and said, "A second plane hit the second tower. America is under attack."
Today we've had a national tragedy. Terrorism against our nation will not stand.
What impact has this day had on those who were too young to remember it, or those who weren't even born yet? And how does the legacy of 9/11 continue to shape our future? Today on Texas History for Kids, I'll explore the lasting effects of 9/11 on current and future generations. So join me as I dive into the mystery of how one tragic day transformed our world and continues to resonate even now, more than 2 decades later. Thank you for listening to Texas History for Kids. I'm your host, Michelle Gallegos, an educator, writer, history nerd, and novice investigator. Each week on the show, we will learn about interesting parts of Texas history, from battles and historical figures to the odd and enchanted. 23 years have passed since that fateful morning, yet for many it feels like yesterday. Those who lived through it remember where they were, what they were doing, and how they felt as the news unfolded. For example, I specifically remember being in my 10th grade theater class, and the principal came on the intercom. "The school is on lockout." I repeat, we are in lockout. Now, many of you all know exactly what that phrase means because it's practiced more in schools today than it ever would have been in 2001. So, for those of us living it though, hearing those words gave us an unsettling feeling that something horrible must have happened, because we rarely practiced lockdowns or lockout procedures in those days. But essentially, a lockout meant that we could continue our work, but we were not able to walk around the school or even go to our next class. I had to stay in my theater class. Now, luckily for me, I enjoyed Mr. De Hoyos, and he was a very fun teacher to be around, my favorite. So if I had to be stuck in anybody's class during this time, his class was the one to be in. I remember him turning on the TV as I watched the news coverage, showing a building on fire. The news anchor said it was in New York City, which is very far from where I was at in San Antonio, Texas. Now, at first, I didn't think much of it. On the television, there were people running around hysterically. Smoke was billowing through the city. But these were images of people who were far away from me that I guess it just didn't hit me yet. Then I saw it. A small object, which actually could have been mistaken as a fly on the screen, flew in from nowhere. Then boom! Smoke billowed, and I got a glimpse of an airplane wing. I could hear confusion and panic in the news anchor's voice when he shouted something like, "Another plane has struck the Twin Towers." I didn't know it yet, but it was at that moment when America was changed. Hello, all you history buffs out there. I'm Michelle Gallegos, a former educator turned podcaster. Are you passionate about learning stories of Texas history that you don't exactly get to learn in school? Sure, you've heard about native tribes, a few famous battles, and historical figures like Stephen F. Austin. All topics that every Texas student should learn about. But what if I could offer you even more? Imagine not only listening to this podcast, but also having access to reading materials that accompany each episode, making it easier to dive into the topics that interest you most. I think you'll love what I have to offer. Alongside each podcast episode, I've created detailed digital reading resources and comprehension activities designed to deepen your understanding and enhance your knowledge. These materials are perfect for students who are eager to explore topics further, and for teachers looking for ready-to-use activities in the classroom for resources. You'll find true, factual stories about Texas history, complete with suggested activity questions that bring classroom discussions to life. Dive deeper into our episodes by visiting michelleauthor.com and get access to engaging material, fun activities, and captivating historical stories. Let's make education enjoyable and impactful together. The shock, the fear, the sorrow, they were all emotions that ripped through every corner of the globe, especially the United States of America. But what about those who weren't there to experience it firsthand? How do they understand this day is so significant, so catastrophic, that it altered the course of history? For the younger generation, 9/11 is a chapter in their history books, a topic in a classroom discussion. It's a story told by parents, teachers, and the media. I remember teaching this topic to my second grade students, and to them, it was just another tragedy. They compared it to current events like recent school shootings and unrest in the Middle East. But 9/11 was different because it was a direct attack on U.S. soil by people who were not from here. I remember my students passing this day off like it was just so long ago, and it didn't affect them, even today. Yet, even without the personal memories, the impact of 9/11 has woven itself into their lives in ways that they may not even realize. Security at airports, the rise of social media, and a sense of worry and alertness, these are all everyday realities that stem from that single day on September 11th, 2001. The Patriot Act was enacted by President George W. Bush on October 26, 2001. This law was made after the 9/11 attacks to help the government catch up and stop terrorists. It gave the government more power to check people's emails, phone calls, and other records to find anyone who might be planning something dangerous. So what does terrorism mean? Terrorism is when people use violence, fear, or threats to try to achieve their goals, like making a government change its policies or drawing attention to their cause. Terrorists often target innocent people to spread fear and send a message. It's a serious problem because it hurts people and it makes communities feel unsafe. The Department of Homeland Security, or DHS, was created on November 25th, 2002, after the 9/11 attacks. It was made to help keep the United States safe from things like terrorism by bringing together different parts of the government to work better as a team. There have been countless other policies that have reshaped our understanding of privacy and freedoms. For today's youth, which includes many of my listeners or their children, this is just how things are. You've grown up in a post-9/11 world where phrases like war on terror and homeland security are just part of your everyday lives, like it's the norm. But is this enough to truly understand? How does a generation without direct memories of 9/11 comprehend its gravity? Well, some say you can't. That without the raw emotional experience, the full weight of that day could be lost in time. But others argue that the younger generation has something unique to offer, a fresh perspective. They're not bogged down by the pain and fear as those of us who lived it are. Instead, they're looking into the future. They're asking questions, challenging the old norms. The weight of the changes can still be seen in society today. Texas, as we know, has a lot of oil and gas, was affected directly after 9/11. The attacks made people afraid to fly, so fewer people traveled, and that includes by airplane and car. And this hurt the economy. Because of this, oil prices went down, which impacted the energy businesses in Texas, and people were also worried about safety around the world, which caused changes in how oil was made and shipped. Texas has several big military bases like Fort Hood, Lackland Air Force Base, and Fort Bliss. After 9/11, there was a lot more military activity, and the security at these bases got much stricter. Many soldiers from Texas were sent to fight in the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. Now, after 9/11, a lot of people in Texas felt very patriotic and wanted to help protect their country. Because of this, many Texans decided to join the military, to serve, and to keep the country safe. Now, as I said before, schools all over Texas started teaching about 9/11 to help kids understand why it's an important part of American history. Even if students weren't born yet when it happened, these lessons help them learn about what happened that day and why it still matters. Every year, schools have special activities and events to remember 9/11 and teach kids about its impact. And what do we think about the generations that are yet to come? What will they make of 9/11? A day that continues to shape our policies, our culture, our global relations with other countries. Now, experts believe that as we move further away from the events of 9/11, its legacy will evolve, as with most wars. For some, it may be a symbol of resilience, of coming together in the face of adversity. For others, it may seem like a cautionary tale about the cost of security versus our freedoms. But one thing is for certain, 9/11 will remain a pivotal moment in history. It has shaped the past. It continues to influence our present and will undoubtedly mold the future. So as we reflect on this day and its enduring impact, we must ask ourselves, how do we want future generations to remember 9/11? As a day of tragedy and loss, or as a moment of unity and hope? Now, these answers are not easy, but they are crucial because how we remember is just as important as what we remember. This is Texas History for Kids. Until next time, keep questioning and remember the answers are out there just waiting to be discovered. Be sure to send me an email with any burning questions you might have about Texas history. michellegallegos.author@gmail.com. Thank you for listening, and remember, yesterday is today's history.